What is up? What is up, YouTube? How y'all doing? Hey, check this out. Without a doubt, man, I just found this video. We running behind on videos, man. So I'm sitting on the other side of the studio while Tahir and them log into the other computers to do stuff and everything, man. So far, so good. We got stuff. Oh, he just sent me another one, y'all. Wait a minute. We got stuff moving. We got stuff rolling. Thank y'all so much, man. Hey, if y'all want to help support the channel, we have a Patreon. I'm uploading videos, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I'm gonna be uploading a lot more as soon as this rain stop. And I'm cleaning up the backyard. I promise y'all, I'm setting up the computers as fast as I can. The stuff got to download. I'm gonna start doing music. I did a little bit of music and everything. I'm just gonna say one more. He done sent another one, so I'm not gonna pull it up yet, but I gotta stay in order. Anyway, check this out, man. I thought this would be a nice video because I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. All disturbing allegations against P. Diddy's kids. I feel sorry for the kids, man. I swear I feel sorry for the kids because they was taught wrong. They was taught by their daddy. Now, I'm not saying that Diddy actually took and said, look, this is how you do it. This is how you put pills in their mouth, pop the pills. This is how you drug them. A kid, young kids, sit back and observe some stuff. And you think they ain't looking. They turn the other way. And they watching. They watching. I remember when I was a kid and I used to watch the adults. They say, go in the room. Because they get ready to play the nasty movie or the nasty music they don't want us to hear. But we can put our ear to the door, crack the door a little bit. Because they partying. We see them partying. You know how kids get sneaky. So they learned this from Diddy. Even when Diddy wasn't teaching them this. That's the point I'm making. Kids learn from their parents. They learn how to cuss from their parents. They learn how to steal and cheat. They learn how to lie to Jehovah's Witnesses when they call on the phone or whatever. Well, mommy, you lie. So I feel sorry for the kids because they was brought up in this situation. I can't hear myself on this side, but now I'm finished talking. So y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Let's check this bad boy out.
We know P. Diddy is in hot water, but what about his sons? He's got a family of 7 kids, and 2 of them face some pretty serious allegations. So what are they, and what's up with the rest of the family? This is Scandal, presented by Law and Crime. I'm 𝗟𝗓𝗡𝗞𝗦.
I mean the aunt. God dang, scandals.
P. Diddy has a pretty big family. I mean, he has 7 kids, 4 daughters. He has 3 sons with 4 different women. I mean, it's a blended family. And honestly, from photos, they look really cute. Like they celebrate Christmas together. They celebrate graduations. It looks like one big happy family. However, 2 of his sons are actually listed in civil lawsuits involving their dad as the defendant. Here's where we've got to mention the allegations against Sean Combs' P. Diddy before we get into everything going on with his kids.
One of them is on the run, allegedly on the run. I wonder if she's going to mention that. Him and Cuban Jr. is hard to find. So the court system is trying to actually use public newspaper. You know, when you serve somebody, you got to serve the person. So you can serve a person publicly in newspapers. That's allowed in some states and different things. So I wonder if she's going to cover that.
Multiple civil suits have been filed against P. Diddy, listing him as a defendant. And a lot of them allege that he sexually assaulted the plaintiff or he harassed them. Some of these allegations include that he drugged them, that he forced them to participate in freak-offs, a lot of different things going on in all the civil suits. And that eventually led to federal raids, which eventually led to federal charges. He's been indicted and actually right now is being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn on some federal sex crimes charges. He's set to go to trial next month and has pleaded not guilty. And again, just want to remind everyone, these are all allegations that he's facing. Diddy's family, though, has been there to support him since he was arrested. They've appeared a couple times at some of his court hearings. So let me really quick break down his family tree.
Hold up, y'all. Who's this guy in the back with the cool shirt on? That's one of the, I know the guys, these two guys, and the twins girls, and the other little girl. Wait a minute, it's 3 boys? I never knew that.
The oldest is Quincy Taylor Brown. He's 33 years old, born June 4th, 1991.
Okay.
And he was born to Kim Porter, a model who had a longtime relationship with Diddy, and actually record producer Al B. Sure. Now, he was named after Quincy Jones, who is actually his godfather. Here's how Diddy gets involved into all of this, though. When Quincy's just 3 years old, his mom, Kim Porter, starts dating P. Diddy, so Diddy eventually adopted him. In his adult life, he's a singer, actor, model, very active on social media, so we've got a lot of pics from him there. The next son is Justin Combs. He's 31, and his mom is Misa Hilton. He was born on December 30th, 1993, and kind of became famous in 2008 when he went on MTV, if you remember that show, Super Sweet 16. He kind of got notoriety with, I guess, the public at that time. And actually, he was the first Combs to graduate college. He graduated from UCLA and posted about it too. He's also appeared on TV since then. There was a 2021 series called Respectfully Justin, where he interviewed celebrities. More on Justin Combs later, but that's kind of an overview.
Okay.
On to Christian Combs. He's 27 years old, and he actually goes by the nickname King Combs. You might know him by that. That's his Instagram name. He was born on April 1st, 1998, and his mom is Kim Porter. So after they started dating Diddy and Kim, they conceived Christian, and then eventually he would go on to adopt Quincy. Now, Christian Combs started his musical career after graduating high school. Here's actually what he told People magazine in 2022. "It's really always been something I wanted to do. There have been times when my dad questioned me and asked, 'What's your plan B? Are you sure you want to do this?' And I'm like, there is no plan B." He's had some success too. Back in 2022, he released a song called Can't Stop, Won't Stop with Kodak Black, and it reached #1 on the Billboard charts. On to Chance Combs. This is his daughter. She's 18 years old, born July 20th, 2008. Now, her mom is Sarah Chapman, who was a friend of Diddy's for years. They never openly dated, but obviously they had Chance together. Now, when Chance is conceived and eventually born, Kim Porter, remember that model who had a relationship with Diddy? She felt super betrayed, and so she left Diddy after all of this. However, just a couple months later, Kim Porter gave birth. So there are twins here, Delilah and Jesse Combs, who are 18 years old. They were born on December 21st, 2006. So what's interesting here is that even though Kim Porter and Diddy stopped their relationship after all of this, the girls, Chance, Delilah, and Jesse, were all still raised together, and they posed for a lot of photos together too. Seems like they're friends. They actually appeared in the May 2023 issue of V magazine. The youngest of all the Combs kids is Love Sean Combs. She's 2 years old, born on December 10th, 2022, and her mom is Dana Tran, who's a cybersecurity professional industrial specialist. Love actually has her own Instagram. She posts a lot of pics, by which I mean her mom or someone actually posts the pics for her, but we do get to see a bit into their lives. So that's a recap of Diddy's kids, but that's not all we've heard from them recently. Some of his family has actually appeared at the court hearings, as I mentioned, following Diddy's arrest.
Okay, my bad. I thought the oldest one, I'll Be Sure's son, and the other light-skinned guy with the curly hair over here on the left, I hope it's your left, that's right by the aunt, I mean the mom, I mean the aunt, I mean the mom, I mean the aunt, whatever he is. I thought they was the same person. You know, Uncle Mike crazy, man. I thought it was the same person, but now I understand that's two different people. The oldest one, he's the oldest. And then you have these two guys that's kind of close to each other. Of course, the twins. But I never knew that the baby was completely somebody else. The little baby, she just is cute. And I feel sorry for her, but I'm happy that she don't know nothing about this drama. That's how young she is.
And his federal indictment.
She don't know nothing about
now,
this
the
drama.
6 oldest kids also released a statement on Quincy's Instagram after the arrest. And here's what it reads.
Here we go.
"This past month has devastated our family. Many have judged both him and us based on accusations, conspiracy theories, and false narratives that have spiraled into absurdity on social media. We stand united, supporting you every step of the way. We hold on to the truth, knowing it will prevail, and nothing will break the strength of our family. All caps, we miss you and love you, Dad." Some of the kids have been pretty vocal too about this book. that came out was allegedly written by their mother, Kim Porter, but they say it never happened. So this made headlines last fall, and this book was called Kim's Lost Words, A Journey for Justice from the Other Side. It was released and allegedly comprised of Kim's journal entries, and it was released 6 years after her death. That was in 2018. So here's how the kids responded to it, quote, "We have seen so many hurtful and false rumors circulating about our parents, Kim Porter and Sean Combs' relationship, as well as our mom's tragic passing, that we feel the need to speak out. Our lives were shattered when we lost our mother. She was our world, and nothing has been the same since she passed. While it has been incredibly difficult to reconcile how she could be taken from us too soon, the cause of her death has long been established. There was no foul play. Grief is a lifelong process, and we ask that everyone respect our request for peace as we continue to cope with her loss every day. We are deeply saddened that the world has made a spectacle of what has been the most tragic event of our lives." So like I said, we've heard from the kids a couple of times. We've seen their statements. They're still pretty active on social media. Sometimes they even appear at court hearings. However, some of them also popped up in a couple of the lawsuits. So let's start in chronological order. That's with Justin Combs and his allegations. Now, these were brought to light in February of last year when Rodney Jones, the producer, also known as Lil Rod, filed civil suit against Diddy. Lil Rod worked with P. Diddy for about a year when they were producing his Love album. And he has a lot of allegations against P. Diddy specifically, including that Diddy allegedly groped him and it was non-consensual, that Diddy allegedly wanted to do these naked body massages, and also that Diddy was allegedly grooming Lil Rod for gay sex. But Lil Rod also made some allegations about Justin Combs. In the lawsuit, Lil Rod introduces Justin as someone who allegedly solicits prostitutes, underage girls, and sex workers. There's also a picture of what is allegedly Justin and an underage girl featured in the lawsuit. Now, Lil Rod says that this picture was taken from a specific instance when at least one underage girl came to Diddy's house for a listening party. Now, a sex worker was also allegedly solicited for all of that, for a freak-off. And we've talked about freak-offs a lot before. Here's just a Reader's Digest version of it all. It was mentioned in Cassie's lawsuit, Lil Rod's lawsuit, other lawsuits, the federal indictment. Basically what it was is that Diddy or one of his associates would allegedly drug someone, then rape them, allegedly, or force them to have sex with a prostitute, allegedly. Oftentimes, Diddy would either participate, watch, masturbate, allegedly, and then again, he allegedly recorded this and used it as revenge porn. So there's an allegation in Lil Rod's lawsuit that Justin Combs was part of all of that world, but there's also another allegation that he apparently covered up a shooting that Lil Rod witnessed. Now this happened on September 12th, 2022 outside of Chalice Studios in California. So is Diddy, Justin, and Justin's friend, a guy named G. That's all he's listed as in the lawsuit. Now they apparently had this argument and things got heated, and all of a sudden Lil Rod says he heard gunshots. Lil Rod then says he found G in the bathroom and he was bleeding out. He had been shot. So Lil Rod says he applied pressure and yelled out, said, "Hey, somebody call an ambulance." However, Lil Rod says Diddy and Justin, quote, disappeared to another part of the studio. Diddy then gave strict instructions to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the shooting. He also forced Mr. Jones, meaning Lil Rod, to lie to the police by telling them that G was shot standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant. This is a good time to remind you that these are all just allegations against Justin Combs. He has not been.
What about the dude that got shot, though, y'all? Y'all ever thought about that? If somebody shoots me and the police come and I'm being helped and everything, are you going to stick to the lie or are you going to tell the truth who shot you? That's interesting to think about, y'all. If you got shot, you gonna cover Diddy up? Did Diddy do the shooting? Man, y'all got it twisted. I don't understand this.
Diddy then gave strict instructions to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the shooting.
I had nothing to do with it.
He also forced Mr. Jones, meaning Lil Rod, to lie to the police by telling them that G was shot standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant. This is a good time to remind you that these are all just allegations against Justin Combs. He has not been charged criminally either. And here's a statement that he released and his team released after all of these allegations came out, quote, Justin Combs categorically denies these absurd allegations. They are all lies. This is a clear example of a desperate person taking desperate measures in hopes of a payday. There will be legal consequences for all defamatory statements made about the Combs family. Okay, moving on now to Christian Combs, also known by the nickname King. It was a woman named Grace 𝗟𝗡𝗡 who alleges that Christian Combs sexually assaulted her on a yacht in December of 2022, and it was facilitated allegedly by Diddy. Now, Diddy rented this yacht around Christmas time, and 𝗟𝗡𝗡 says it was a revolving door of high-profile celebrities and sex workers who were often passed out on the ship's deck. Now, the lawsuit says there were liquor bottles all over, and it was really difficult to distinguish which ones were laced with drugs, according to 𝗟𝗡𝗡. Now, 𝗟𝗟𝗡 alleges that on December 28th, 2022, while working as a yacht deckhand, she was sexually assaulted by a heavily intoxicated Christian Combs, who physically assaulted her and allegedly forced her to perform oral sex on him. Now, that's a lot of background about all of this, so let's dig a little bit deeper. All right, here's the fun part, our interview today, and we have a great guest, Philip 𝗟𝗢𝗡, former deputy
Phillip.
public defender. Thank you so much for coming on Scandal with us, Philip. It's so good to see you.
Thank you back. Thank you.
Okay, so we're talking P.
Nice
Diddy
background.
and his family today. And I mean, P. Diddy has a lot of allegations against him, don't get me wrong, and the federal charges and all that stuff. But I'm wondering why his kids were even mentioned in the lawsuits at all. I mean, there are allegations against him, but Diddy's really the kingpin in all of this. Like, why add all these extra defendants, rather, when they're the plaintiff?
Because they did stuff they ain't no business doing.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, it's all about money. When you're filing a lawsuit, it's really not for criminal justice. It's not to make a point. It is to collect. And they are all related to what we call the deep pocket. It's an age-old expression in civil litigation that it's the one who has the bank accounts, who has all the wealth and the assets. And to be fair, it is very possible that they do have a viable claim. We haven't really seen all the evidence yet. We're just reading allegations in the civil complaint. But assuming they can prove this up, it could be quite damning for these kids. But that's the main reason why. I think the other reason why is to gain leverage against Diddy. Sometimes when you have multiple people getting deposed, they may, even just through inadvertence, testify under oath at a deposition that, Dad arranged this, we got on the boat, we did this, not even thinking or knowing or intending to implicate their own father. But that is ultimately the end game, and that is the result. It's sad and it's tragic, and it really divides families. It can be awful.
Okay, that's my question, because if either
I'm sorry to keep stopping it, man. But damn all that. Whatever happened to right is right and wrong is wrong? We keep calling them kids, but they grown kids. They 30 and over 25 and all this stuff. Right is right. Wrong is wrong. The kids did wrong. They know what they was doing was wrong. They adults. It's about money and it's about leverage on Diddy. It's about right and wrong. What happened to that part? I think I'm the only crazy person in this world because I stand on what I believe in. They did wrong to these people. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Neither one of them said that. I should cut the daggone video, man.
either of these sons
Is the result. It's sad and it's tragic and it really divides families.
Dividing the families? What are you talking about, cuz? What is for real?
To implicate their own father.
Implicate
that
the
is
father.
ultimately the end game, and that is the result. It's sad and it's tragic and it really divides families.
Really?
It can be awful.
Okay, that's my question. Because if either of these sons are deposed and they do an interview under oath for a civil suit, could it then be used in criminal court? Because that's where Diddy is, right now he's facing federal charges. He's going to court or trial next month. I mean, could those interviews be used there?
Sure. I think worst case scenario, though, the interviews would be used against Diddy. I truly believe, and this is just my spidey sense talking to me, that the U.S. attorneys, the DA's office for those jurisdictions have already reviewed the evidence. And I think they've already determined that they just don't have enough to go forward criminally. So what is plan B? You go after people civilly. Now, it's not to say it cannot evolve into something criminal. A lot of it will depend on how much evidence they can garner during discovery, what, if anything, they say under oath at a deposition, or if the civil case goes to trial, what they may testify to at the jury trial. So right now it remains to be seen, but my gut says there's no criminal liability. The other reason why, too, is that the feds are not going to take a criminal case that merely involves one sole victim complaining about a sexual assault. What they will do is they will defer that to the states to resolve, unless there is some type of triggering event that kind of involves interstate or foreign commerce. The feds just simply won't get involved. The enterprise aspect of it, at least as far as I know right now, based on the evidence presented, is it's all attributable to Diddy and not the kids. You know, the kids are just there with their hand out all the time. Dad, I need this. Dad, I need that. And he's just basically bankrolling the kids. They're not the kingpins behind the entire Combs enterprise, you know? They're, in a way, I hate to say it, they're more like witnesses and victims themselves, even though they may have done a few bad things, but not on such a large global scale.
Are you serious, dog? When are we going to wake up, man? When are we going to say there's no gray area? Either you did good or you did bad. But you put this gray area. Well, you know, they Diddy kids. They're not the kingpin, so let's get the kingpin and let's just smack them on their wrist a little bit. But yet they want to be adults. I'm a grown man, I'm grown. Are you serious? Oh my God, dude. Wait a minute.
Dad, I need that.
And these, I want to say this also. These two people on the end, my gut feeling is they are the worst actors. They acting like the guy on the end. He don't hardly say nothing throughout this whole thing. And the one that looked like Diddy, looked like a splitting image of Diddy, because he looked like Diddy, he jumps out there and do more things like his dad. That's what I think. That's what my gut is telling me. My gut feeling is telling me, I hate to say it, Lord, I just don't trust him. How about that? I ain't gonna say I don't like him. I ain't gonna say I don't like him. That's wrong to say. But that's what I feel. I just don't trust them to.
And he's just basically bankrolling the kids. They're not the kingpins behind the entire Combs enterprise, you know? Really? They're, in a way, I hate to say it, they're more like witnesses and victims themselves, even though they may have done a few bad things, but not on such a large global scale.
Yeah, right.
You talked about the investigation on the criminal side of things, and I tend to agree with you for that because I'm sure we would have heard something by now. And also your point that the feds wouldn't go after them if they only have one allegation or one charge. I mean, they're going after Diddy and he's got a lot of allegations against him. So I agree with that. However, I'm wondering on the civil side of things, not a criminal investigation, but civil, would there be that as well? I mean, when we're talking about these allegations against them, sexual assault or solicitation of a prostitute, would the attorneys or their team have to go through and investigate those claims?
Oh, sure. And I mean, let's be honest here. Civil attorneys, plaintiff attorneys, sometimes we call them PI attorneys, personal injury, they're only taking cases if there's a payday. They're not out there to make a point, to become, media glory hounds, get their day in the limelight. No, they want to make a living. And they're not going to take a case of this magnitude, work it up when there's really no payday at the end. So they must truly, A, believe in their client, and B, feel that there were compensable damages. It's not to say, again, that it's on this huge global scale. If there was just simply one act of unwelcome sexual harassment or sexual touching, that is compensable under the law, and you can sue for it. Now, does it necessarily mean it'll go criminal? No. And the reason why is that the elements for civil causes of action are completely different than the elements for a criminal cause of action. So, for example, in civil, it is a defense to say, I reasonably believe that she consented. If he truly reasonably believed that she consented, then a jury can find in his favor. They might not like the whole seedy atmosphere, that it was done in the steerage compartment of a private yacht, all sort of under the umbrella of the Combs enterprise, where he's chartering these boat trips, and there's all this type of Caligula, Sodom and Gomorrah activity going on, in the bow of the boat. I get that. But if we're really honest about it, it doesn't necessarily rise to that level to make these kids the kingpin. It just means they did a bad act. It was a one-off, and there may be some liability, but they will also have a defense. And I guarantee you it will be that there was mutual consent.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought that up. Let's get into the specific allegations, because you were talking about Christian Combs on this yacht that was apparently chartered by Diddy. And this woman, Grace O'Marquet, says that she was sexually assaulted in all of this. So she alleges that at the hands of Christian Combs. And you mentioned consent with all of this. So how would he prove that it is consent? I know that you said it isn't as high of a burden of proof in civil versus criminal, but what would he do to prove his side of the story?
It's purely circumstantial. So, for example, a jury's going to wonder why she's even working on this boat. Why is she even tending bar? Why is she there when she knows good and well what goes on in the Combs world? That's number one. Somebody who's truly terrified, who's afraid, and finds all this type of activity unwelcome doesn't even take the gig. Period. I don't care how much money is involved. But let's just assume, no, she treats it like a job.
It's a job.
Not
it's
to sound
job.
sexist or like a misogynist. So it's a job. It doesn't necessarily mean that she has to submit to all this sexual activity. But how is it that all of a sudden she ends up in this sort of theater that can be converted into sleeping quarters? She wasn't dragged in there by the hair like a caveman. She obviously went in there willingly. They were age appropriate. If I'm not mistaken, she was 25, he was 24. It doesn't look like she was physically injured. A gun was held to her head, that there was some type of edged weapon put up against her neck. They obviously went to some type of area where it was private and quiet. And for whatever reason, she flipped the script on him. Now, does it mean maybe he went too far? Maybe. But the test is not whether or not he went too far. The test is whether or not he reasonably believed that she consented under the circumstances. Consent doesn't have to be by way of smoke signals, a text message, an email, or a telegram to say, yes, I'll go for it, I'll do it. You look at their behavior from afar, and an objective bystander might say, well, what did she think was going to happen? You're going into what was otherwise converted into a bedroom. There's partying, there's drinking going on. It's just the two of you. What, do you think you're going to sit down and eat a bag of popcorn and watch a movie in there? No, it's absurd. So I think a jury might find that she sort of objectively consented by way of her conduct, as opposed to by stating, yeah, okay, let's go for it,
All that is true, what he's saying. It's all true, but this is not Diddy's yacht. This is a company that rents out yachts. And I thought, maybe I'm wrong, I thought the little girl was working for the people who, in fact, she was working for the people. Her job, she going to work. So when people rent out these boats, they don't know who it is. She going to work. Just so happened Diddy rent out the boat this day. And she's going to work to do her job. They leaving that out. What make it so bad is she said that she was at work and she took her complaint to the person who owns the boat. And I think she got fired, or they chastised her and all this other stuff, man. So what you're saying does hold weight. She took a break and she went out there with Diddy. She want to be around the superstars or whatever, Diddy's son.
Consented by way of her conduct, as opposed to by stating, yeah, okay, let's go for it,
If I'm thinking like a defense attorney, I would also probably point to the deep pockets, as you said, and the fact that she filed this civil suit after there had already been a couple of other civil suits that happened. So she's thinking, oh, okay, potentially they're going to get a settlement. Maybe I could get a settlement. I mean, do you think that's something that they would do?
Facts.
I mean, all the things you pointed out there, but potentially even attack her character.
Yep, some people probably do stuff like that.
You're going to try to make it look like that she is what we call the manqué wannabe starlet who had to get her start by basically tending bar on a seedy yacht. But she thought that, and I'm just speculating, but typically that's what a lot of people do. I mean, in the old days, Sierra, back in the 50s, people used to go to the local five and dimes where the big Hollywood producers and directors went, praying to God that they would get discovered based on their beautiful looks. And that somebody might say, hey, have you ever thought about doing pictures? You ever thought about being in films? And it did happen. The old Brown Derby, for example, I think they tore it down some years back, but it was basically a coffee shop here where a lot of sort of hopeful starlets would get a part-time gig praying that they would get discovered. Well, in the modern era now, that's what people do. You hang with people who are in the know, you take jobs with people who are in the know, and hopefully you'll get discovered. Why? Because that's where all the wealth, that's where all the popularity, and that's where the success is. And to stand back now after the fact and say, no, that's not what I wanted. Really? So you were just in it for the money? You were just there for the tips? Could you really make that fabulous of a living on it? Okay, we'll see what a jury does with that. But that's how you deal with it. You point out circumstantially that these people often take these jobs to get ahead within the industry, not so she can get her own gig running her own bar, or some brick and mortar restaurant. They want to get in the biz. That's usually what it's about.
So we talked about the defense side, which you did a great job of presenting the defense. I'm wondering about her side now, what you think she would have. I mean, you talked about the plaintiff's attorneys, the PIs, that they wouldn't take the case unless they felt like they had enough evidence to actually get a payday. Do you think she could then have strong evidence, and what could it look like?
Of course. Just remember this. No means no. Let's just pretend they both did tie one on. That they had a couple of drinks under their belt. They went in there and she felt that he was going too far. And she says, no, knock it off. Come on, keep your hands to yourself. And he continues. And this is all caught either on audio or video type surveillance. Then he better get his checkbook out. Because no means no. And a jury is not going to respect the fact that even though it started off consensually, it can evolve into something that is unwelcome. And when somebody says, no, that's not my vibe, that's not my scene, take your freaking hands off of me, and they don't, under the law, that's called a rape. It truly is. Now, is it proof beyond a reasonable doubt in the criminal arena? Maybe, maybe not. But civilly, preponderance of the evidence, you better get out his checkbook, because that, I do believe, would be a compensable cause of action.
And I do think, I don't want to victim shame in any way, because it is so strong for these people, women, men, to come forward with these allegations. So I guess we'll have to see which way that one plays. So we talked about Christian. Now I want to talk about Justin too, because there's a couple of allegations here. In Lil Rod's lawsuit, there's an allegation that he solicited prostitutes and underage girls. What do you make of that allegation?
If that's true, it's a crime, period. You cannot solicit anybody to have sex under most of our laws. At a minimum, at least out here in California, it is a misdemeanor soliciting a prostitute. The male is what we call the John, the female is what we call the Wendy. And oftentimes in the prostitution world, the prostitutes are not these high-end call girls, like the Heidi Fleises from the 90s. No, those days are over. A lot of them really are the girls who are just tricking for drug money, for some Uber fare to get home, to have their next meal. So they truly are victimized by that whole illegal profession. You can't get them off the streets. They need to get their own housing, their own source of income, and just make their way in life, But generally speaking, I will say, though, that society doesn't care about prostitution, if we're honest. Nobody really cares that if somebody wants to go out there as an adult, have sex with an adult for a few bucks, have at it. However, that does not apply when it's a child. When it is a child, And particularly out here in California, if that child is under the age of 14, not only is it a crime, but you will be going to prison and you will be registering as a sex offender for the rest of your life, period. That is called a molestation. And under most laws, a child, a minor under the age of 14, lacks the legal capacity to consent to sex, even if they articulate that they are in fact into it and want to have some form of oral copulation or intercourse. It's still illegal. So what does that mean? It means don't do it. Or if you're unsure what the age of your prostitute is, card them. And if they don't have ID, abstain and go find yourself an adult or diddle yourself, as we say, but don't do it. It's not worth the consequence.
No, I think it's especially extra tricky when we're talking about people who are underage, and that just is a whole other web of situations and makes it way far worse. There's also another allegation against Justin, though, too, that he helped cover up a shooting that happened near one of Diddy's studios outside. What do you think of that? I mean, I know we talked about the criminal side of things and investigation. Maybe there isn't enough to charge him, but do you think it's worth looking into on the criminal side of things if there actually was a cover up in regards to the shooting?
Well, like I said earlier, I am pretty convinced that the cops, that the DA's office, and anybody else investigating the case has already looked at the facts. And I have a feeling, and now do I know this definitively? No, of course not. But I have a feeling that they have rejected a criminal filing. And so what did they do? They went the civil route. Now, does that mean it cannot evolve or develop into a criminal case? Certainly. But that's why we have the Fifth Amendment privilege. If you feel, and in this case, Justin, if he feels that maybe he really did do it, but there's just not enough evidence, he can clam up during a deposition and take the fifth. And they cannot compel him to testify. The only way they can compel him is if state and federal prosecutors give him a full grant of use and transactional immunity. But they're not going to do it. The only way they would do it is if he agrees to testify against Diddy. And they're certainly not going to make that kind of a deal to testify against their dad. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't see them testifying against him at all either. I mean, I'd love to see it actually, but I don't envision it happening. If we're talking about predictions moving ahead for these kids, I mean, I say kids because they're Diddy's kids, but they're adults. Justin and Christian Combs, potentially any of the other Combs children, what are your predictions moving forward? Do you think other allegations could come forward? Do you think there'll be a settlement? What are your thoughts?
I think Daddy Diddy is going to pony up some cash and settle the cases against his kids. And so that they can go on with their life in complete repose without ever having to look back and get it behind them. Now, criminally, Diddy's in trouble. Diddy going down, okay? He is in big, big trouble. I will be shocked if he walks away from this. In my opinion, counsel should do whatever he or she can to try to settle, because these charges carry multiple life sentences, and the last thing he needs to do is go down behind sex acts. Listen, I don't know about you, Sierra, but if I'm going away, it's not going to be behind some sex. It's going to be behind a murder. It's going to be behind a Briggs heist. It's going to be behind breaking into Buckingham Palace, So at some point in the criminal justice world, you have to know when to cut your losses, and that's when counsel needs to step in and grovel, meet with DAs, beg, and try to settle the case early.
I mean, one thing's for sure, this case, all of the different facets of it is so interesting, and there's always new developments coming out, a lot to follow. Philip Dubé, thank you so much for coming on with us today and chatting about it.
My pleasure.
A quick reminder now that these are all just allegations against Justin Combs, Christian Combs, and P. Diddy himself. He has these civil allegations, but also federal charges. However, just to be clear, he's not been convicted, and he has pleaded not guilty, set to go to trial just next month. Now, that's all the scandals we have today on Justin and Christian Combs. If you have any scandals for us, please reach out. We have our tip line available now. It's scandal@lawandcrime.com. So send us any suggestions. That's all today for Scandal. I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.
Damn, man. It's everybody want a payday. So, yes, it could be a situation where the girl said, yeah, oh baby, I love it. I want to go into this private room on this yacht. get jiggy with you and all this 9 yards, and then turn around and say, oh, he done armed me and all this stuff. It's a possibility that happened, but I don't think somebody would jump out there and do all that. That's just my opinion, and take it this far just for the bag, right? For the bag. But it's possible that could have happened. You know, I think that we wasn't there. We don't know. But you have to stand by the victims. You know, if that's the case, they got plenty of money and the girl wants some money, just pay her off before she even take it to court, because you're gonna have a criminal case on you. You need to be more careful who you lay down with. You know, I mean, especially when you're at that type of level. I don't know, you know, but I know one thing: all this gray area that's in this world need to quit it, man. So y'all let me know what y'all think. I think that I'm one of the first people that really would want to believe the person or believe the girl, hoping that she's not lying, you know. Yeah, y'all tell me what y'all think. I'm gonna get on up out of here. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. I gotta get some more water. Peace out.